Hello, my name is Ahina Atta and I graciously welcome you to the guest. Today I have a pioneer of Nollywood industry, a man that has paved the way for thousands of talented youths. He is a multiple award-winning creator, filmmaker, actor, and businessman. Join me as I welcome Mr. Okey Ogunjiofor. Welcome, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
It's a privilege to have you on the guest. When my producer told me that you become, I was like, oh, really? Because I watched Living in Bondage, the first Living in Bondage, the original Living in Bondage, and AMINA. When I watched the trailer of AMINA, I was honestly anticipating to watch the film. And when it came out on Netflix, I think I watched it that same night because the trailer is indeed amazing.
Thank you.
So let me start by congratulating you because that movie, AMINA, won the best overall film at the just concluded African Magic Viewers Choice Award.
Thank you so much.
How was that night for you?
Well, it was a very long night, I would say, because it gave me an opportunity to begin to reflect on my life and the number of years we put in making AMINA. And the number of years Nollywood have stayed, and then all the things that God has really mercifully done through me, and the pains and the ups and downs we had to go to make AMINA and other things we've done. And so I was telling myself, that God has been faithful to me. I may not have all the things I've ever wanted, but so far, everything I've done, God has always stamped his imprimatur on them to say that this is the way to go.
Stand out.
And they stand out, and then they point the way forward for other people to follow. That's fulfilling for me. So the awards were there for me to, for people to see. But honestly speaking, whether I win an award for a film or don't, it really doesn't matter. I just want to do the best I can in order to move the industry forward and change the narrative for others to follow. Once that is done, I'm satisfied. So that night was cool for me.
Before I really talk about AMINA, because there's a lot of questions I want to ask about that pic. It is amazing. I don't think I have seen a biopic produced in that level in Nigeria. So it's really one picture I want to talk about. Let's start with how you started your career as a filmmaker in the industry. What prompted you to say, you know what, I want to be a filmmaker, I want to tell stories? And one also interesting thing about your career is you don't just tell any story. You're very intentional. So let's just go back and start with how you became a filmmaker.
If I begin to talk about what and how of my career, it will take a whole day, and I'm not sure that's what you want to hear. However, let me cut it short. I came from a family background where my father was a consummate artist. My father doubles on all fronts. He's a visual artist. Most of the churches in the East in the 60s were, Catholic churches. They have painted glasses and all those crucifix that Virgin Mary and all those. He did them across East. But he was a teacher, a very poor teacher. That is just his own craft, the only talent that God has given to him. My father is a poet. My father organized this festival of arts and culture in the East, where he gathered a lot of artists, which is one of the reasons why he went to Festac, to represent East Central State. And so I grew up in a family where art is in the gene. But I wanted to study law. It wasn't film for me. There was no lot of money coming from that, except certificates and plaques and awards everywhere, accolades. And I didn't see a lot of the money, so it wasn't attractive to me. So, but somehow I went to Jos, took JAM, passed for law, went to Jos to enroll, but somehow within the year, I had an accident that left me in the hospital for some time, and this left leg was broken. And so by about 6 months, by the time I left the hospital, they've registered and matriculated, and I couldn't, we didn't even have the idea to defer admissions then. So my uncle in Jos, my late uncle now, Jab just advised me to take admission into, buy form for NTA Television College. They were, admitting people for film and television productions. Then just instead of being at home every day, I just go there and then see what can happen so that I can take another jam. But I got there and I fell in love with the course. I fell in love with everything they were doing because it was so natural to me. And so I stayed there for 2 years. I saw myself doing virtually everything, doing projects for people, assisting everybody to do things. And that's how my career began in film. From there, Soweto was shot in Nigeria then, 86. South Africans came here to do Soweto celluloid, and some of us were lucky to, because of our passion there, who are accepted to play roles both as crew and as cast. From there, 87, when they were shooting Mr. Johnson, we were on the set where Paulo died. We were also on that set. So one grew knowing, that film is a place I want to be. So I never went back to read law. And because of how good I was in this craft, the school gave me a referral. At that moment, there was an embargo in employment in Nigeria. So when we graduated, there was no place for us to really work. So, but the school gave me a referral to Shingo Nwigwe, who was then the DG of NTA. And I went to him with my referral because I had a very good grade. And he looked at it, regretted that he couldn't help me. But then called his friend, Mike. Michael Okbala, Chief Michael Okbala, the only world wrestling champion that came out from Nigeria here. So sent me to him, and I went to him with the letter and my certificate. And the guy said, well, he's his friend. He now took me in to be his media manager, so he bought equipment. So we were going around, capturing his fights and wherever he promotes fights and all those things. That became the only thing we do. But it was at the end of his retirement. He was already retired. So that job didn't last for long. The guy retired and was going to go back to Nene to set up a gym. And I wasn't going to go with him. I came all the way from the east to find my feet here, and you're taking me back to the east. So I resisted. So that left me on the streets for some time because there's no job. Until my being on the street was actually to hawk. I thought it was something I could do for 1 year to raise money to make living in bondage. But the more I tried to save the money, 150,000, the more I lost money. And then 1 year went, 2 years, 3 years. By the 4th year, you couldn't believe that I went to school, because now I've been on the streets for 4 years. And every alphabet of hunger you can see them basically on my face. But here I was determined to tell a story in order to change the narrative. There was no cinemas. Cinemas were there, but you see, our indigenization decree took the cinemas away from those who were running it from abroad and handed it over to Nigerians who couldn't run it. So there was no cinemas. There was no film culture anymore. And there were a few persons who were making film, like Paugunde, Igbo, and maybe Adelove, Brendan Shehu in the north. And then there was our brother in the east called Mark Urinendima. He was shooting film that time. And then somebody here called Arumire, and then Jaguar, and a few persons. And
but why were you determined to make a film if we had just a few people making pictures back then?
My determination was, I stumbled on, you see, let me backtrack a little bit. In 75, 75, there was this indigenization decree that Obasanjo and Murtala Mohammed promulgated in the country, which took away the ownership of most multinationals and divested ownership into the hands of locals. At that moment, film cinemas were everywhere in this country. At every point, you can hear, you see here, God Day Cinema, you see here, what do you call it now? The one in Penn Cinema. There were cinemas everywhere in the country, run by foreign nationals. But they were not the ones making the movies and bringing them here at distribution outlets. So when they left, Nigerians who took over those cinemas don't make a lot of films to satisfy the cinemas. And we already have a cinema going culture where people, the teeming masses want to go to cinemas. But the cinemas were becoming empty, nothing to watch. So you could only see the Ogundes and they had the love and the few Yoruba and the filmmakers with Igbo making films. And there were so few. And these guys outside cannot shoot their films here since you said they can't be here. So how do they get their money back? So they don't. It took time. Within time, the industry collapsed. The cinemas began to decay, and churches began to take over the cinemas. So at that moment we came. But what we were taught in school was that the character of film is the same thing, no matter the format. I mean, the cinema telling, the storytelling quality of a camera is the same, whether it's a celluloid or a VHS. Okay. I mean, if I put a camera on your face now, you're smiling. Whether it is a very poor quality camera, people will see you're smiling. True. And if I use a digital, they will see you're smiling. True. Like I said before, they were those few guys making films. It meant that someone would need to redefine filmmaking if we can remain relevant. Because obviously, those ones are trying their best, but it was never an industry. We can't join them. It was a closed circuit thing. It was so elitist that, and so when we came out and I didn't have the money to make that type of celluloid film that I'm making, because you needed a lot of pounds sterling to go, get your film stocks and develop your film abroad, bring in equipment and technical know-how to make your film. So I didn't have that. So one needed to redefine filmmaking to be either pocket friendly or in such a level where we can all practice without dying. See, there's no job. So it was at that point that I said to myself, I need to find, I remembered what I was taught in school, that cameras are the same. Okay. So I determined to make a professional film using
the camera that's available.
The VHS camera, which was, you can hire one for 5,000 per day.
Okay.
So what am I looking for?
How did you wrote the story, right? Of living in
Of
bondage.
course. It wasn't actually a written story. What happened was that yes.
Interesting.
Yes. It wasn't actually a written story per se. It wasn't written as a script. It was sequence outlines that we did. You know what sequence is outlines? Situations. We defined situations and the characters, and then we brought people in to play those characters. And that's why the rehearsal took quite some time.
How long?
3 months.
Okay.
Now within these 3 months, we were able to act out each of the scenarios and build it. So we bonded within the those sequences, and so you already know what I'm going to say because we read it over a period of time. But why it's not written as a film format was because it was a real scenario that I saw somewhere. When that brief moment when I was with Paulo, there was this they called it a festival. It was an outing, an event. People hired me and my crew to come and record it, and then so we went there and saw the pomp and pageantry of what was going on. After the event, when we submitted the tape, the guy who invited me to record the show for them approached me to talk to me to belong to the society, and I asked him what the society was all about. He said they were about helping themselves. It's just a group of people, cultural group that help themselves and be that. And I could see. He said whether I wanted to belong. I said yes. Because I saw cars, I saw people, I saw the high and the mighty. When I now asked the name of the association, he told me it was the name of one of these legal courts. So my blood went cold. So when I said to him, no. He said that the reason why I'm asking you to belong is because the moment you belong, you've been on the street looking for money, blah, blah, blah. You will do this, you will do that. And I'm going to give you, connect you to people, you can be making films. That's your dream. I said, I'm coming from a family that is so disciplined and we were taught values. And my father says to me, there's dignity in labor. Whatever you can do to put food on your table has dignity. Don't join anything to make it happen for yourself. Because once you do, you lose your soul. And all those things began to ring in my head. And I said to him, no. So he left. So when I eventually got to make this film.
At that point, you were looking for money to make your film, but you were not swayed by the offer.
No. The offer was the least thing because I'm thinking about my parents, I'm thinking about God and my soul.
How did you eventually get funding for the movie?
Now, I haven't stayed on the street for that 4 years. What happened was that someday, towards the end of that, I think it was 2 years first, then I met somebody his name is Kenneth. He served me in secondary school. So he ran into me on the go slow and said to me, "Senior," and I answered. He said to me, "What are you doing here?" He looked at me and didn't like me at all. He said, "You are so bright. You left school, went to university, higher institution, and came back. This is what you're doing?" He said to me, "Somebody is against your destiny. That he wouldn't mind if I can follow him to God, to church, so that he can tell his pastor to pray for me. That something is wrong. That this is not normal." And I was coming from a Catholic background. You know what it is. What my parents say. But I was desperate. Okay, I can give it a try, even if it's only for prayer. So I followed him to church, and the pastor said, as I walked into the church that day, and the pastor began to preach, every word he said was almost like me. So I began to think whether they staged it, whether this guy. But he wasn't talking about personally me, but he was saying, a wise man is somebody who knows one thing about everything and everything about one thing. He said, ask yourself, what is that one thing that you know everything about it? Go back to that. And this is film. That's one thing I know everything about. What I'm doing on the streets and other places, I can't guess. He said, go back to that. After service, I went to the man and told the man that I was taught by what he preached. He said to me, to go back to that place, you're hawking on the streets now. Don't lose the roots of what you learned. Go back to the National Theatre almost every day to go and see, keep yourself in the loop of, because people were still at the National Theatre rehearsing dramas, stage dramas and all those. He said, go back there and keep familiarizing yourself. God will show up one day. And so one day, in the evenings where we were supposed to, when gospel, in the evenings is when gospels pile up. That's when hawkers really make a kill. Now, but instead of me to go and wait at the, hawk and the go slow, I retired, every evening I retired to the National Theatre to watch others rehearse and, watch them, just make friends and keep myself. So this day I went there, I saw Wale Macaulay, I saw Frank Vaughan, I saw John Ikem, I saw Sidney Dial, I saw some of the guys that work with me on In Bondage. They were having some drama called Visions. It was a soap opera series they wanted to do for NTA, to do for funding. So, but I was watching them from afar, and so they were taking some stage directions and then made some mistake that wasn't supposed to be. They took some lines where they ought not to take it. So, and I shouted no from where I was. So everybody turned and looked at me and said, why are you making such noise, distracting people? And I told them, because what you did there was wrong. They said, what did they do that was wrong? I said, if you're taking that action here and there, this is what you're going to get. This is the effect that it will have in the audience and all that. So Frank, as God will have it, Frank just said to them, others were thinking, is it because we're now allowing this hawker to come here that is now making... So, but Frank said to them, this guy spoke our language, he must know what we're doing. So he said to them, can you do what he said? And they corrected it. And immediately they did it, even themselves felt the audience rose up and clapped. So they approached me and I said, why can you join us and help us package this better so that we can... That was the light they hawked. So instead of resuming from Ajegul every morning in the go-slows to look for money, my passion took me to that place daily. And for 1 month, we did that job, packaged it, and they took it for At the end of that production, there's a lady called Ruth Osu of Checkmate Fame. Ruth called me and said, young man, you know this job so well. Why are you on the street? And I said to her, ma, I'm on the street because I'm looking for 150,000 to make a film.
You already had a budget.
Yes.
And a story.
So the lady said to me, in those days, Yoruba films, those ones that Jaguar and some of them will not be up to 10, 15,000. So you're talking about 150,000. That's huge. So, but the woman now said to me, I can give you a note to somebody, a marketer of films that I know. He imports tapes. And I know that if you team up with him, you can be. That's how he gave me a letter to Kenneth Nebo, who sponsored and marketed Living in Bondage. And I went to Kenneth Nebo and I told him the story I wanted to tell. When he saw me read the letter, he said to me, if I know Ruth, but if you're the person, looking at somebody with my neck and my boots, it doesn't add up. He said, if you're the person that I'm going to give money to team up to make a film that you're claiming, let me see your certificate. He thought that if he said that to me, at least that door is closed. I mean, he didn't think that somebody on the streets would have certificate. So I went to Ajegule that instant. Within 2 hours, I was back because his office was in Ijesha. It was a stone throw. I returned with my certificate and everything, and the referrals that they gave me. I read it and said, so what do you want? And I told him. And I told him the story I wanted to tell. The story about how a young man like me, because it's my story, has been in the street for 4 years, and someone is talking to me how to join our cult, and eventually joins it and makes money overnight. And then another one of his friends who is brighter, but is not finding his faith, joins him and eventually kills his wife, but didn't make money, and all those and all those. So he said to me that story will be dangerous because, you're talking about the occult. So, but I said to him, I'm already down there. And my mom would always say, he who is down needs no more fall. There's no more fall now. So I said, leave me and them. Let me do the story. Let them come after me. Let me be the one. After all, it's not you. You're not the one doing the story. So that's how, to cut it short, I got the money. He didn't give me cash, but he was spending, but because he was using his office. But I had to go back to National Theatre and call most of those my guys that I already have formed as a team. Now you can see how the pastor's prophecy is coming to pass.
True.
And I brought some of them who can speak Igbo to begin to be the basis. And then we began to expand our auditions and began to bring other people. Like Andy, I brought Andy from Apapa where he was working with those equip. Kana was in Mafoluku then. So like that.
Why did you make the dialogue in Igbo? We're looking at the society where the theater is dilapidating and the industry needs a form of resurrection. Now, and you're making a film for a particular
It's a very interesting question. Let me tell you something. My calculation, what you're asking borders on my business plan, because there's a business plan I gave to Kenneth, and it wasn't written. Now, at that time, it was believed that the population of Nigeria was 100 million. And I said to myself, if I make a film with 150,000 in Igbo language and sell to Igbos alone, assuming the population of Igbos was 10%, that is how many?
10 million.
10 million persons. Now, if I sell 1% of that film to that 10 million people,
that's 1 million copies.
1 million copies. But I'm even saying, let me sell 0.1, which is 100,000. I'll make 3 million. Because the cost of cassette in the market then was 300 naira for a 3-hour tape. So if you give me 150,000, we're going to make.
This was the business plan you gave to Mr. K.
So it was irresistible because film is all about numbers. So it looked good, and then he brings in cassettes from abroad, empty cassettes. So he will have sold his cassettes. He will have done the mass production into his cassettes, brought the money, marketed the film himself, and controlled every funding. So nothing is lost.
So Living in Bondage opened a new chapter in the Nigerian movie industry. You
Yes.
did what nobody thought is possible, and that has paved way for a lot of movies we are seeing right now. But back then, did you ever think that that film would be this successful? Because it's still it's a classic.
No, I didn't think. See, like if you understand what I was saying initially, it's only that I wanted to put money in my pocket and then liberalize, make something friendly, pocket friendly, make the same old, not what you call it now, celluloid film with a smaller camera.
So
it's
when the success came, how did you react to it?
Did I even know it was success? you see, when sometimes when a woman who is pregnant gives birth, there's joy. But you see, my own came with a mixed grill. Mixed grill in the sense that this was somebody from my street to Lagos, to Balogu and the Dumota. People see me daily hawk. Then suddenly, within a few months of no longer hawking, my name began to, people watched those films in cassettes and saw the same person, and here was a ritual. So people didn't understand whether it was real or an act. So they thought that was really a ritual because the transformation was very rapid. Well, I wasn't hawking anymore, so the rumor was that they captured us while we were doing the rituals, so it looked so real. You understand? It was like people hit somewhere and captured us doing the ritual, and they released the tape. So you get the point?
Yes, sir.
So what happened was that because of this rapidity in change, I couldn't enter buses. If I enter bus now, people are bound to recognize a ritualist, and they didn't take it kindly with me. It hasn't happened before. And then remember that the person that was killed was someone that everyone loved, merit, and so it was real. I was finding it difficult to mingle. So you see, joy that you produce something, but there's so much isolation and pain coming because people are looking at you with they don't want to associate with you. They are looking at you like, what's in this guy? This guy is really a ritualist, and so it was so painful. So I kept telling my guy, who the executive producer, to, help me by giving me some money, because see, when we got into the arrangement, we didn't have any agreement. It was just,
I can do it. Let me just
and the guy is just trusting you to give you his money, and then you are not going to be insisting
don't even have
on
a
agreement.
bargaining power.
No, that's not. So, and he's going to sell the film, but it's only a promise that if you do this that you're saying you're going to do, when we finish the film and I recover my 150,000 and all the salary expenditures, we'll share the other 150-50. And that was okay. But here, immediately 1 month after the production, we have sold about 20 million naira worth of goods. But I can't enter buses. I don't even have money to enter drop. At that time, drop was only 20 naira per day, not per hour. You just enter into a taxi park and enter, say drop for the day. At the end of the day, just give me 20 naira. 20 naira. But I can't afford it.
After making a 20 million naira film.
So it became a problem. And I said to him, give me some money, if not to find an accommodation, at least to find a befitting means of moving around. He kept saying, let's do the part 2. When we finish the part 2, I'll give you what is belonging to you, blah, blah, blah. His accountant kept warning me, and if you don't collect this money, I know my brother, I know my Oga, we'll give you. So I called his bluff like a young child I was. I was less than 29 then. So I said to him, if you don't give me, I'm not going to make the part 2. But I finished writing the sequence outline again in his office. So the guy just called my bluff and called all my characters and my artists, and then shot the part 2 without my director. My director was Obirapo. I went to NTA to bring him. So the guy also have learned. So he went to NTA and brought another person to do the part 2 for him. And so they purported to have killed Paulo in the film. That's how that film. Then I moved on to do Circle of Doom, Naked the Pretty Serpent, Brotherhood of Darkness, When Flowers Turn Black, and I stopped making movies.
Why?
Because I wasn't making money from any of them. I didn't have the money. So investors gave me money. They were going to sell the movie. So when they finish selling the movie, you go say, give me what we've agreed. They tell you the story. We've not recovered our money. The films are still in the parks here. See them now. And yet, they're all cruising around. You can't do anything. I didn't have anybody to speak for me.
Wow. So we have more inspiring stories coming up. Keep watching the guest. I still have the legendary Okey Ogunjiofor. Keep